I'm Denise.
She's a non-fiction editor, and I'm Louise.
She's a fiction editor. And together,
we're the Editing Podcast. Hello again, and welcome to another episode of the Editing Podcast. So this week we're talking about newsletters and whether your editorial business needs one.
Yeah, I think the important word there is need. So why don't we look at what the benefits can be, and then maybe that will help people decide whether they do actually need one.
Absolutely. Because like so many things in business, the answer is it depends.
Yes. So ultimately, I think the reason why you and I are so fond of the newsletter as a business tool, at least in principle, is because it's a way of establishing a direct and consistent line of communication between you and your audience. I mean, it's your list, it's your land.
It really is. It's people who've actively chosen to raise their hands and say, I want you to contact me. And that's a huge thing, a privilege, in fact.
Yeah, definitely.
And what that gives you is perhaps the number one benefit, because you're no longer fighting with the rest of the world to make your mark in the search engines.
Yeah, and that really is a massive thing, because the more content available online, the harder it is, especially for someone who hasn't been blogging or YouTubing or TikToking forever. It's difficult for them to get found in the search engines.
Yeah, you're going direct. And so even though a newsletter mailing list takes time to build, even when it's just a small number of people, it's people who've already made the decision to sign up to hear from you.
Yeah. And so another benefit of starting a newsletter is the opportunity it gives you to build that community around your editing business.
Yeah.
Your newsletter it's your space, and you can use it to share insights, industry updates, ideas, tools, and news with either your colleagues or your potential clients, depending on what your focus is.
Yeah, and if you do that consistently, over time, you'll build up a loyal readership. And when people start to repeatedly open your newsletter, you're strengthening your brand identity.
That's what we talked about in our last
other
episode.
episode.
Yeah. So another benefit is that you can showcase your editorial expertise. So maybe you can share some insights about a recent project and how you managed something that was complex. Or you could talk about something that you learned that you think others might benefit from.
Yeah, that's demonstrating your industry knowledge. And the offshoot of that is that over time, if you're consistently helpful, the information in your newsletter will help to position you as an authority in your field.
Yeah, and consistently is the key word there. Or maybe we should say regularity, which is where I'm going to hide behind the sofa. Because I'll admit I've been slack on the regularity front with my own newsletter, and things happen. But ideally, you do want to be sending it out regularly, whatever that means to you.
Yeah, I agree. And it's that regularity that means you're most likely to get another benefit, remaining top of mind. And it's important when you're operating in a competitive field to be top of mind. But we all have to be a bit kind to ourselves, because the fact is that life sometimes just gets in the way, and all the tip-top scheduling in the world won't matter a damn if other things have to take priority.
Yes, here. That is so true. Now, doing any kind of business promotion or servicing, it just has to take that into account, because otherwise it becomes a bind. And creating a newsletter should be a fun thing. It shouldn't be a ball and chain around your ankle.
Yeah, exactly. So let's talk about the P word.
Oh, you mean promotion? Right. So, so this can feel awkward when it comes to newsletters. Some people feel that all they should be doing is giving. But it's really important to remember that if you're doing this for your business, then there's nothing wrong with promotion.
I agree with that. And it's that whole thing about selling being embarrassing. Unfortunately, a business that isn't financially viable, however, isn't actually a business anymore.
Yeah, exactly. You're no longer self-employed, you're unemployed.
Yeah.
So look, you don't need to try and flog something in every sentence, but you do have to aim for a balance.
Yeah, definitely. And just because you've got a discount on your editing services or a time limited deal on a course or a book, you can still make it a special thing for your newsletter subscribers.
Yeah, a reward that's exclusive to them. So it's a sale, but it's coming with a gift.
Yeah.
Now, you know how we talked right at the top about beating the search engines? Well, it just struck me that, of course, the same applies to social media.
Oh, that's so true. I mean, think back, say, 10 years ago. and how much easier it was to get traction on social media.
Mm,
But the algorithms are constantly evolving. But your
yeah,
newsletter list isn't affected by that.
exactly. Again, it's because it's that direct line to your audience. There's no middleman there.
Yeah.
And it gives you a tool that's reliable and it's independent of what Elon Musk is doing with Twitter.
Or whether Meta's having a Friday afternoon meltdown and you can't even log into Facebook.
Yes. Or you haven't got your TikTok hair on. Yeah.
Your TikTok hair.
Well, whatever, yeah.
But you're right. Having a newsletter means it's your mailing list, and
Yeah.
that gives you control over the content, the design, and how often you send it out.
Yeah. And the thing that we ought to mention here is segmentation, because that's something that I love.
Oh, me too. So if you're using some sort of email marketing platform like MailChimp or Flowdesk, you'll be able to set up audience segments, and that means you can target different types of people with different types of content.
Yeah, so maybe you're developing a new course or hosting an event. You can send out targeted news to specific segments of your subscriber list. It's impossible to carry out that kind of responsive communication on social media or by using the search engines.
Yeah, certainly not unless you pay out
Lo-
billions of pounds.
lots of money. Yeah, yeah.
So, should you have a newsletter? Do you need one? No, you don't have to have one. You don't need to have one. But there are benefits if you do, definitely. I think the key is to experiment and work out what works for you in terms of content and schedule.
Exactly. So if you're an editor who's already turning down work on a regular basis, maybe your time's better spent elsewhere. But if you have other products, services, or events that you want to make visible, it could be a really useful tool.
Yeah. It's about deciding what the purpose of your newsletter is, isn't it? Like knowing that helps you decide what kind of information to include, but also to assess whether it's working.
Yeah, I agree with that. Have a plan, decide what the objective is, and how you're going to measure it. And if it isn't working, don't be afraid to ditch it or change it.
Definitely. I mean, because if you're creating a newsletter with the aim of making your editing services more visible, but most of your subscribers are other editors, there's a mismatch. That something
Yeah.
needs to give.
Yeah, and I think that's something that people can often be guilty of overlooking. You've got to
Mm.
think about who your target audience is
Yeah,
there. Yeah.
definitely.
So one thing I think we need to mention just briefly is rewarding sign up, because it's a big deal for someone to hand over their email address. So give them something in return, something useful.
Yeah, so perhaps it's a checklist or a booklet, something exclusive. And sure, some people will just sign up to get the thing, whatever it is, and then unsubscribe. But don't worry about them.
Absolutely. Focus on those who stick with you.
Yep, indeedy.
So that's it from us. Thank you once again for listening. If you'd like to help support the Editing Podcast, we've got a couple of options for you. And the first is that you can tip us with a one-off donation of your choosing.
Or you can join our Patreon community. All our patrons get exclusive access to a huge batch of transcripts.
Both the links are in the show notes. In the meantime, she's been Louise.
And she's been Denise. Join us again next time.
Bye.
Bye.